Welcome back to Lying by Golf, the podcast made from the connections we find through a great game of golf. I'm your host Ross McGuire, and today I'm joined by Todd Graves, one of the leading voices behind the single plane swing, and a man who spent more than a decade learning directly from the legendary Moe Norman. We talk about Todd's journey through professional golf, the VHS tape that changed his life, and how meeting Moe Norman led him to dedicate his career to teaching a simpler way to swing the golf club. We also go deep into who Moe Norman really was away from the myths and why his legacy still fascinates golfers around the world. Let's go over to Todd. Hey Todd, great to have you on the podcast. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Ross. Great to be here.
And Todd, we're going to jump straight into Moe Norman. So what's the influence of Moe Norman been in your career to date?
Moe Norman's been a very big part of my life. But, it was mostly because of my desire to hit a golf ball better. I was on a search. I was on a mission. I was on a mission to get better at golf. And I tell people that before I met Moe, no one had spent more money than me on golf instruction. And I worked with the best instructors in the world. I didn't know I got worse. I got worse before I got better. And then I got very lucky to meet. I saw a video of Moe first. And then a friend of mine was playing the Canadian tour, and he brought a video of Moe to my apartment and said, "You got to see this guy." And I said, "Well, yeah." I said, and by the way, I knew a lot about the golf swing because I'd worked with the best instructors in the world. They were all trying to help me. But then I see Moe, and he was doing something so radically different. But from where I saw it, from where I was, it looked so much easier, made so much more sense to me that I started practicing like Moe for a year before I met him. And I immediately got better. I started getting better and better and better. So it was literally, I think I was just one of the luckiest guys in the world to be able to, at that time, run into Moe Norman or run into a video of Moe at the time. And that's kind of the story goes from there.
Wow. And then we've gone straight to the Moe Norman side of your journey and your life and your career, Todd. But how did you get into the game? Where did it start?
Yeah, I mean, I was 11 years old. I was middle class and living in Illinois, and we lived across the pond from a golf course. And so, my average afternoon with my buddies was to take a little boat across the pond and fish out golf balls that people were hitting into the lake from the country club, and steal the golf balls, or run out to the other side of the pond and hit them back in the pond. And that's kind of when I started. All my buddies would hit golf balls, and then I really didn't get really into the game until we moved to Oklahoma, where I grew up down the street from a golf course. And my dad, you want to talk about a great babysitter? Is just drop your kids off at a golf course and go to work, because we'll have plenty to do. So my mom and dad would drop me off at the course, and I would have to find something to do. So I took a job at the course, helping, do whatever I could so I could play golf for free. And man, I grew up around a golf course, and I think it's a great way for a kid to grow up. So I got started. So that was about when I was 11, 12 years old. And then, take it from there. I played, started playing competitive golf, junior golf, loved the game. I love the solitary style of the game, where, it's really all about you and you're dealing with your own emotions and your own. I was kind of an introverted kid. I was very introverted. I still, you probably couldn't tell that I'm introverted, but I'm relatively introverted when it comes to these things. So, that's just, I love it. I watch I have Academy here in Edmond, Oklahoma, and I watch the kids out there, and I can tell the kids that were like me, right? They go to the corner of the range. They're into themselves, yeah, I love it.
Brilliant. And then during that transition, Todd, what was your progress like in the game? How did it come around for you? You mentioned that you probably spent more money, you think, than anybody else in the world on lessons, but what was your transition and your progression in the game like through those years?
Yeah, I was a good high school player. I won a few tournaments in high school. So growing up, I was known as a pretty good player. I'm not a very big guy, so it's not that I hit the golf ball a long distance and overpowered golf courses. I really was a technician more than anything of making. I was always a pretty good player, just all the way around. And I got a couple college scholarship offers, but they weren't to any larger colleges. So I wanted to go to a Division I school. My dad was a doctor. My mom had a master's degree in English, so very, very educated family. So my parents were really oriented more towards get a great education. So I just went to Oklahoma State University and I really didn't play golf for the first year, but I got invited to play the intramural golf tournament, which was just, I don't know if you know intramural golf here in the States, but they basically, the fraternity guys and the non-fraternity guys play a tournament, and I won the intramural tournament, and I started getting the bug again to play. So I went to the college golf coach there and I said, "Hey, any spots on the team?" And they're right at the time. Oklahoma State was the best college golf team in the country, and of course they're like, "We don't have room for you. We're too good for you." So so I ended up that summer going down to Norman, Oklahoma, which is the rival school of Oklahoma State, and working at a golf course there. And it just, again, I think my life has been very interesting. I mean, everybody's lives, if you look at them, there are a lot of serendipitous things that happen in your life. But I was working in the golf shop, I'd say bag room, at this golf course in Norman, Oklahoma, where University of Oklahoma is. And Todd Hamilton and a guy named David Sheffield. Todd Hamilton won the Open Championship in 2004. Todd came out there. He was on the team at OU. He came out there to play the back nine, and I saw him out there, and I really didn't know who Todd was. I mean, I knew they were on the team, but I asked the head pro, "Do you care if I go out there and play with these guys? We're really slow in the bag room. Nothing's going on in the golf shop." They said, "Go ahead. It's getting dark anyway. Go ahead." So I went out there to play the back nine with them, and I beat them, both of them. And after that 9 holes, Todd says to me, he goes, "Who are you and what are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I was trying to play golf at Oklahoma State. Couldn't really figure that out. And came down here. The pro here is a good friend of mine. He goes, 'Well, do you want to try to get on the team at OU?' And I said, 'Sure.' He goes, so the next day I get a call from the assistant coach at OU, and he says, 'Hey, would you want to play in a walk-on tournament? Do you walk on the team?' And I said, 'Of course.' So I got on the walk-on. Now, it was a 6-round event, and I made a 10-footer to win. I barely won the
Wow.
tournament. Barely won. And as I walked off the green, the the assistant coach put his name was Jim Beglin, put his arm around me and says, "Thank God you made that putt." I said, "Why?" And he goes, "Because we had this entire tournament to get you on the team. We had to have a way to get you on the team. We put the entire tournament together for you." And I was the first walk on it at the University of Oklahoma. So that's kind of my story of how I started playing college golf.
And
But
for the
but I
listeners here in
wasn't
the UK who maybe don't know what you're talking about there, I know a little bit of it because I've listened to a few pods with people in the States, Todd, but am I right in saying that what you're talking about is that a walk-on is if you don't have a spot at that university or that team, you can go and play a tournament, and if you win the tournament, you effectively get not just a place in the team, but a university spot as well. Is that how it
yeah.
works?
Yeah, it's a tryout, right? It's a tryout. And so I'm not sure how many people were in the tournament, to be honest with you. There might have been 50. I don't really remember how many. Anybody can try
Wow.
out. Anybody can try out. So, yeah, I would have to look at that, but it's been a long time. But yeah, so it's a tryout. You can walk-ons on football teams. They'll have tryouts for walk-ons, and it's a way to take the kids who have a lot of talent that don't get overlooked coming out of high school. Um, I'm not sure if they still do it, to be honest with you. I'd have to talk to the coach, who's a good friend of mine, if they still do a
Yeah.
walk-on tournament there. But yeah,
And
it's not.
you mentioned
Yeah.
Oklahoma State. Is that not where, not at the same time, of course, but is that not where Ricky Fowler went? They've got a really,
Oh
really
yeah.
good team as
Yeah,
well, right?
Ricky. At the time I was there with Scott Verplank, Bob Tway, Andy Dillard, um, uh, Mark Hayes. It's just an endless number of players. That's why I couldn't get on the team there. They were just way too good. Brian Watts. I mean, there was so many great players from Oklahoma State. But yeah, so that's kind of how I started playing college golf. And I wasn't a great college player. I mean, trust me, I didn't have a lot of real junior golf experience other than I'd played the local tournaments and stuff and been very good in local stuff. It wasn't nationally ranked. I didn't have, my parents didn't have the wherewithal to the money for me to travel, and it just, my game, it wasn't just like that in my household. But I loved at OU, being at OU, because I got to play with Todd Hamilton and guys like Todd that elevated my ability to see what a good golf really is. And then in 1991, actually in '89, I broke my hand, So
Right.
my last year and a half of college golf, I couldn't play. So the coach made me the assistant coach of the team. We won the national championship in 1989. I was the assistant coach on that
Wow.
team. And then in 1990, I turned pro and I played the Asian tour. I went straight over to Asia and played my first
So
professional tour in
did you go
Southeast
there
Asia.
with Todd Hamilton? He played Asian Tour as well, is that
That's
right?
that's why I went there because Todd, he had been there a few years before I got there, and Todd said, "Why don't you come over? I'll show you the ropes of how to be in Asia and stuff." And I roomed with Todd for the first 3 or 4 events. It's kind of weird how they at the time how you would you'd room with a guy, but if you missed a cut, he makes the cut or whatever. You're traveling in different groups and stuff. But yeah, so I roomed with Todd and hung out with Todd. But I just got to be around so much good golf. It elevated my game to be around people that were better than me. And I
Yeah.
always push people to do that, even though I was getting my butt kicked out there quite a bit, right? Um, I got better. I'd walk off the course and I'd see guys do things like, I can't do that yet. Like, I need to, and so you really see the standard of golf you have to play. The first event I played in, Bernhard Langer showed up, and he was, I mean, I don't know how old he was then. He was probably in his late 20s. I don't even know. And, I watched this guy in Hong Kong. I shoot 70. I shoot 77 the first round, and he shoots 63 with a triple on the last hole. No, no,
What?
no, I take it back. No, he shoots 63 the first round. He shoots 66 the second round with a triple on the last hole, and I'm like, I don't have that game. I don't have that, right? So,
That's
so yeah, you,
incredible.
you learn a lot just from being around it. So
And Todd, just for the listeners that don't know, who are maybe not my age as well, because I'm turning 50 this year, but Todd Hamilton won the 2004 Open Championship at Troon, beat
yeah,
Ernels in the playoff.
yeah.
Fantastic player, and it's really interesting. I remember one of the things that stood out about Todd was he talked about the fact, and you're mentioning a little bit towards that there, the fact for him was it didn't matter that he hadn't won a US PGA Tour event necessarily recently or whatever. It didn't matter he hadn't won a European Tour event. He'd won so many times on the Asian Tour, the Japanese Tour. He was just used to winning. It didn't matter to him what tournament it was. And I
Mm.
thought that was really refreshing when he won that Open. As much as it was a shock, he made it clear that actually, if you can win at golf, you can win anywhere.
Well, and the quality of golf is so great everywhere. On every tour. The guys that are on the European tour, the Asian tour, those guys can play anywhere. It's just a matter of playing well in whatever week you're playing. I saw so much great golf. There was a guy named Frankie Minoza. No one will probably remember Frankie, but they used to let they used to let the Asian tour. They used to have more amateurs in the Masters, and they used to let the Order of Merit winners from the tour like Asian tour play in the Masters every year. And Frankie, I think, played the Masters numerous times because he always would win the Order of Merit, the money title in Asia. And so there was these amazing golfers over there that you're like, these guys are, and he was Filipino. He was from the Philippines. So there's these great golfers around the world, and we don't always see them because we watch the PGA Tour, and you watch maybe Live or some of the bigger events, but there's so many good golfers in this world, and yeah, you play with those guys, you're like, this guy's remarkable. I I played this one event. Um, there's a Rodney Butcher. Some people may know Rodney. Rodney played on the PGA Tour a little bit, and I was playing with Rodney in an event. We were playing a mini tour event down in Florida, and I hit a drive into this water on this par five. No, I actually hit my drive really good and hit my second shot in the water. And so I take a drop, and I take a really bad drop in the wrong place. I was just frustrated, and I hit my next shot in the water, and I make double. And I walk off. I walk off the green, and Rodney puts his arm around me. He goes, "Todd, that's why we're on the mini tours right now." And I thought it was great because, I mean, it just, you have to raise your standards, to play that level. And if you do stupid stuff, you get stupid results. I'm not sure. I think if I had to go back, and play again, I would have to learn patience. I think I just did. I was too impatient, and I think I still am. So
Brilliant.
yeah.
And then, Todd, you mentioned that you've gone through a lot of coaches, I guess, in the past. So What was that like in terms of what you were searching for? And then we'll definitely get to the point where everything changed around Moe and his
Yeah.
involvement in your life. But what were you? I guess what was driving you? What kind of frustrations did you have? What was that part of your journey like for you?
Yeah. Well, I always so what you do. I think the way it started was you're like, okay, who do the best players work with? If the best players in the world must have the best coaches. So I obviously had access to the best players and I had access to the best coaches. So I started spending my time with guys like, David Ledbetter, Hank Haney, Matt O'Grady, Tom Anton, all these guys that we've heard about. You're doing, and I'm not saying I worked with them that much, maybe one lesson here, but I really worked with Hank Haney more than anybody. And I give these guys a lot of credit. Hank Haney is a brilliant instructor, and he taught me. If he wouldn't have taught me what he taught me, I wouldn't know what I know about swing playing, and I wouldn't know what I know about Moe Norman. So I give all these guys plenty of credit for teaching the game. It's not an easy game to teach, but what I ran into was the way my mind worked was why is there not a singular model? Because the body is built a certain way, it's anatomically built a certain way. We all have two arms, two legs, hands, so there's no standardization of golf instruction. So that was my first thought process because one day I remember I was out there with Hank one day and he goes, stand closer to the ball. And so I did, and I worked on that for the entire day. The next day I go out there, he's like, move away from the ball a little bit. And I said, how far do you stand from a golf ball? It was like, how do I know? Like how, so there was all these like question marks that weren't getting answered. So there was this massive big question mark over, is there an easy way and a possibly a best way to hit a golf ball? And
Thanks for listening to Link by Golf. I also co host a new podcast with Colin Gray called Both Sides of Par. Every episode explores the different sides of the game, from drills and practice habits to course strategy, mindset, equipment, and the realities golfers face at every handicap level. If you enjoy the conversations here, I think you'll really love this one too. Follow Both Sides of Par now on your favourite podcast platform so you don't miss the first episodes. Just search for Both Sides of Par or go to bothpar.com. Now let's get back to the pod.
there's a lot of great instructors out there. I'm very much the way I think now after meeting Mo and doing the things I've done. I look at the golf swing is that we're looking for the easiest way to get to impact. That's the way I look at the golf swing now because the most important thing is just consistency. If we don't, I don't care how far you hit it. If you don't have consistency, you're not going to be able to have any predictability when you play golf. So, so then my brain went to what's the easiest way to take the human body consistently get to the moment of impact every single time. And then, so that was more of my analytical approach. Um, so after I went all those instructors, I just thought I gotta find. Well, I almost quit. After I had gotten worse because after 3 years of working with all these instructors, I wasn't getting better. I was getting worse. The sponsors I had, all the guys that were paying for my life to play professional golf, they were gonna pay me
And
anymore to go shoot 75 out there.
and were you purely playing at that time? So you were
Yeah,
effectively playing for a living all
yeah.
through that?
Well, and to the point where I even took a bartending job in Dallas, Texas, because I was running out of money and I wasn't good enough to make any money playing. And I was still working on my game. I bartend at night and practice golf during the day because, I use the
And that's
daylight as
hard.
much as I
I mean,
could.
that's really hard when you're trying to do both,
Oh,
isn't it?
yeah.
It's so difficult.
But I was passionate and I was practicing as hard as I could. It was a good time in my life. I wasn't married, I didn't have any real obligations there, no kids or anything. So heck, it's just golf and trying to make a living. So, but yeah, that was the journey, right? That was the journey. And then I met Mo. Then I got really lucky to meet Mo Norman.
I was going to say that takes us perfectly into something changed in your life, clearly. So, was it as simple as you saw the video, then you met Mo? What was that? What was that transition period like for
Yeah.
you in your
So
your life and your career ultimately, Todd?
yeah. So one of the things that we used to do at Hank Haney's studio is, the technology is great today, but at the time we had a TV screen and a VCR where you put that big VHS tape in, right? And so we would draw a line on the screen with a pen, like a dry erase marker, and then we would swing and we'd see if our plane line would line up on the line. And I
This is
remember,
going to be great content for Instagram. Can you imagine? People, young
yeah,
kids today are like,
well,
you
even
mean you
one time,
literally drew on a screen?
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And it's so funny because one time I did it with a permanent marker at my house with my girlfriend, and she walks in my house, and I couldn't get it off the TV. There was a line on there. So I was watching TV with a line on there, and she's like, "Why is that line on the screen?" I'm like, "I don't see it anymore." So yeah, but
But were
so
you on plane? The point is, were you on plane,
I guess
Todd?
every show we were watching was on plane. I guess I don't know, but
Wow.
but so that we draw this line on the screen, and we'd set up, draw a line on the club, and we'd go to impact and draw another line. And there was this separation between the two lines. So you'd start on one plane and impact on the other. And and so we're trying to get the lines closer together, right? But our process was to try to get our hands lower at impact. So, and I kept noticing the closer I get to the low line, the worse I hit it.
Right.
I was making up stories. And it was so funny. I was in the studio one day. This is down at Hank Haney's studio. I don't know what year this was. Had to be 94, 95, 96, somewhere there. No, it's probably 90. It's probably 90, 92, probably around 92 right after his tour. And a guy named Alberto Caneda became the president of PGA Mexico. So Alberto was one of my college teammates. And he comes walking through there and he looks at me and he sees these lines on the screen. And I'm like, he goes, "What are you trying to do?" I'm like, I'm trying to get back to this impact line. He goes, "Why don't you just start your hands higher?" And I'm like, no, no, no. They keep telling, everybody keeps teaching me to put my hands down here, like close to my body. So there's this like, you know, well, that was really the catalyst to when I saw Moe, because it was about a year later. Matthew Lane, my friend, who was playing the Canadian Tour, great player, won the New Zealand Open in 1998, another college teammate of mine. Matthew came down to Dallas. He had a video of Moe. Now, I knew who Moe was, and a lot of people knew who Moe was. But to me at the time, Moe was just mysterious character that no one could get close to. Some guy that supposed to be great, but he may not even be real, right? And so Matthew says, "Todd, you got to see this videotape because um, in Matthew I really respected because we had hit a lot of golf balls together and played a lot of golf, and Matthew was a great ball striker. And he goes, "Todd, this guy's the best I've ever seen." The quote he used was, "He's a freak when he hits a golf ball, how good he is." And so I was like, I got to see this. So he puts the tape in the VCR, and the very first thing I see is he's got the club on a high plane line, like everything's lined up. So what do? I grab my pen, I stick it on the TV, draw a line, and he starts on that line and ends up right on it. And
There
I'm
you
like,
go.
what the hell? I go, I've been chasing this thing around, and that's the best way to do it. But he looked different doing it because he started high, and which now we call the single plane. But gosh, it just made so much sense. So immediately, of course, me, the next day, I'm out at Hank Haney's studio with my hands high, and Hank walks by and goes, "What the hell are you doing?" And I'm like, "Moe Norman." I go, "I think I got it figured out." And Hank just kind of blew me off. But believe it or not, Hank had a Moe Norman video in his office. And I was like, and they would say things like, "Well, Mo's left-handed and he's autistic and stuff." I'm like, "But he got two arms, two legs like I do, right?" And so I just started copying him. I just spent a year watching that tape, drawing lines on the screen, and copying Mo. And I started getting better right away. All the problems I was running into from the conventional standpoint went away. My back stopped hurting. Um, I got to impact consistently. I started hitting it more solid. Now, I wasn't perfect. I had some issues. My grip was still a little bit too strong. My club face would close a little bit. But overall, it immediately improved my ability to consistently hit the golf ball solid. So to where in 1995, I qualified for the Canadian Tour. Went to the Canadian Q School and I qualified and got my
So
Canadian
you,
PGA Tour.
so you were still playing then when you went through this transition. You were
Yeah,
still trying to make
barely,
a living playing
barely,
golf.
barely. I met Mo and that kind of saved me. And then, I met Mo in 94. I finally got to meet him in person, and then and we'll talk about how great that was. But then I did qualify for the Canadian Tour a year later. Yeah.
Wow. And that takes us straight in. So what was that first meeting with Moe Norman like? Given
Well,
everything you'd read about him and you'd heard, and he was like this
yeah.
mythical character you'd only seen in video, what was it like when you actually met him for the first
So I
time?
get invited to Chicago to a clinic where so there's a company called Natural Golf at the time, and Natural Golf was independent of Moe Norman. They had no idea who Moe was, but there's a scientist, well, I'll say a self-proclaimed scientist that that had started this company, and he was right on with a lot of his science of the golf club should be treated like a long hammer, right? And it made sense because everything is lined up
Right.
like a hammer. So there's this company, Natural Golf. So of course, I got tied in with them because they saw what I was doing. They saw me setting up like Mo. So I get heavily involved with that company, just trying to figure out how we bring this method out to the world, help people swing on a single plane. And so Mo got involved with that because Mo was really a validation of what all of this Natural Golf stuff was teaching. So I get invited by Natural Golf to do a clinic with Mo with Natural Golf in Chicago. And so I get in my car and I drive to Chicago. Now I had been doing my version of his swing from that video for a year. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I look pretty good, I guess. I don't know. And at the clinic, so Mo does this amazing ball striking demonstration. First time I ever saw him in person. And I always tell people there's no way I can honestly describe how good the ball striking was. And trust me, I'd played with the best players in the world over an Asian tour. I'd been all over the world playing. And my first impression was the sound of the golf ball, the way it came off that club face. And when a ball is struck perfectly, and every shot Mo was hitting sounded like that. It was just an amazing sound. So that was my first impression. And the ball flight was just in the same exact trajectory, no curvature, just bullets, just going out there, just perfectly. The first, he starts hitting little wedge shots from 50 yards. The very first three, there's a little sign target. Both of them, all three hit the target. And then by the end of the clinic, he's talking away, he's doing his thing, talking away, throwing clubs around, doing his thing. And then he grabs a driver, and there was a pole, and there's a metal pole, and it was about 250 carry to this pole, the 250 numbers at the top. And the pole is probably 4 inches wide, metal pole. And he was hitting drivers at it. And it probably, in the first 10 drivers he hit, I bet you 4 of them, you could hear the ding off the pole. They're all just going right at the sign. And I was like, I've never seen anything like this before in my life. And so,
And what was that was a clinic. What was the reaction of the people that were there as
I,
effectively guests and customers? What were they thinking when they're seeing this?
most people just, standing in amazement, just like, this can't be real, kind of. And Mo didn't look like the average golfer. His clothes weren't tucked in. He barely
Yeah.
wore a belt. He ate a cheeseburger and be on his shirt. His clubs were scattered like he was just selling all his clubs on a side shop or something. And here he was just, with a perfect swing motion and just ripping golf balls. And he's like, so simple, it's laughable, golf's so easy. And, so after the clinic, I walked up to him and I had a bunch of questions for him. I'm
I can
ready,
imagine,
right?
yeah, no wonder.
I'm 28 years old at the time. And, I said, how'd you learn to do that? Like, and he goes, hard work, can't buy it. I'm like, okay. And I said, do you care if I hit a couple of your clubs? Because his clubs are laying there. I grabbed his 8-iron and I started hitting some shots. I said, watch me hit some balls, Mo. And he goes, ooh, it's me without a belly. It's me without a belly. He started looking at me. It's me without a belly. So I got kind of nicknamed Little Mo. That was kind of where it all
Right.
started.
Brilliant.
And then he saw my ambition, and he saw my passion for, I actually said, I'm gonna be better than you, Mo. I want to be better than you. And so he saw what I was really trying to do, and he saw my enthusiasm for it, and we just became friends that day. And then I spent as much time as I could with him over the next 10 years. So just as much time as I could spend with him, because you never stop learning. And I would do things like crawl between his arms before he'd hit. And I would go, let me see your hands. And I would grab his hands and see how they were hinging. And I would, see how his shoulders are moving. I was trying to feel what he was feeling to hit a golf ball. And I did a pretty good job of interpreting all that, of course, I've done a lot more research and stuff on exactly what goes on in human motion to do it. But anyway, that I became a mission of mine to learn his swing, number one. But then I fell in love with the guy because he's just such a unique guy, and he was such a misunderstood person. And so I just fell in love with him too, and we just became friends, and kind of the
And I
history.
was going to
That's
ask
what I've been
that
doing for the
very,
rest of my life.
very question as well, Todd. I mean, what things would you say were most misunderstood about Mo? Because there's the,
He was
I guess
he
there's
was a
always
very
these views of how people are, but what was your view having spent so much time with him personally?
he was a very gentle, caring person, and he really, really was a good human being. He didn't know how to relate to people. He just didn't know he really didn't know how to connect to people. He didn't know that relationships are kind of a two-way street. Um, he just but he really did. He really was a good-hearted person, and he did a lot of good things in the world, and he just was just misunderstood for that because he wasn't social. He wasn't very
Yeah.
introverted, and people kind of took that as being either um, angry or maybe not friendly or be hard to get close to, which he was hard to get close to. But once you were in his inner circle, it was a totally different world in there.
Yeah, and I mean, I certainly wouldn't proclaim to know a lot, but in a lot of circumstances, and everybody's different, but people who are affected by autism, that's quite a common reaction that it's hard for people to get close with them because they do find it hard to relate to people. So it's actually not unusual. But you're talking back then, it's so many years ago, and we were so badly educated as I guess, a world
Mhm.
around autism, and we're still not there yet, but it definitely did not know enough back then.
Yeah, yeah, and they're so involved internally with their in they're in their own little world, and he certainly was. By the time after 6 or 7 years, and he was on the cover of Golf Digest in '95. Um, and then he was I don't wanna say forced, but we'd get him out and do clinics with him and do things with him and put him in the public more. He became better and
Right.
more he became more accepting of his environment. If you talk to his best friends in Canada, they would tell you about a whole different entirely different Moe Norman than we would see in the public. They would say, "Yeah, he jokes around with us. We play cards with him all the time. He's great to play golf with," which he was great to play golf with. I mean, he was your buddy. I remember I hit a shot. I was playing with him at Greenleaf, and he hits a drive right down the middle in this par five, and I hit my drive to the right. I hit it good, but it went in the water to this in this lake on the right. And he goes, "Good as a good shot. Water got in the way." I mean, he was fun. He was friendly. He was encouraging, he was. And if you're in that little world, it was great. But if you weren't, if you met him at a gas station and you're filling up your car with gas and he's next to you filling his car up with gas, he's not going to talk to you. He's going to walk right off if you try to talk to him because he just doesn't want to engage.
Of
He
course.
just didn't want to engage. Yeah.
Yeah, and then what was the impact then on you? So clearly it's had a profound effect on you. One, hearing a bit more. Two, working on a single plane swing. But
Yeah.
having met him and gone through that, I guess, transition of your own feelings around the game and the way you play it, what has the legacy been for you?
Well, I played. He died in September of 2004, and I played my last round of golf with him in July. I used to go see him on his birthday. He was up in Toronto, Kitchener, Ontario, and I used to go up there around his birthday and say hi to him and see him because when he was in Florida, I spent a lot of time with him. But he's in Canada. I didn't go up to Canada that much, except a few times a year. And so I
Yeah,
went up there to see him, and I knew he wasn't doing well health wise. And so we played. It was the first time. Usually we played 9 holes. We hit a few golf balls, mess around, and I'd take off. And he wanted to play 18 holes, so we played nine. And we're sitting down for a little bit of lunch before the back nine, having a hot dog. And he said, I said, "Mo, my mission is to teach the entire world who you are and your golf swing. That is my mission in my life." And he turns to me and he says, "Well, what can one man do?" And so that became my mission. I said, "Okay, we'll see what one man can do." Right. And so that's been my mission is to do everything I can to let the people know not only about his golf swing and how I've studied it now to the point where it's just hard to argue scientific facts of what he figured out. And I call his swing a discovery, by the way. I don't call it a method because he discovered the absolute best way to anatomically position the body to strike a golf ball. And so he figured that out. And so my mission is to teach as many people that, but also teach people about who he was and the character he was and how much he contributed to the game. He's still today contributing to the game of golf. And
Yeah.
he's been gone for 22 years, right? So
People
that's
still, you hear his name pretty often on different forms of media. Lots of people still bring it up. His legacy is very popular on YouTube. People want to
yeah.
hear about it. They want to know about it. So it's incredible the impact he's had way beyond his lifetime,
Well,
which is incredible.
I'll put a video out there on YouTube and it'll get 2,000 views. I put a Moe Norman video on YouTube, it gets 200,000 views, right? I mean, he's an amazing character. He, he is a genius. And guys like him are geniuses and they're hard to recognize because we don't understand a lot of how they are and what they say. And I was watching a video yesterday. We're getting a documentary produced around Mo, and we're working on it. It's been in a long road to get the documentary done. But I have collected hundreds, maybe even thousands of hours of pictures and footage of Mo, and I'm trying to
Fantastic.
upload it to these documentary filmmakers in California. And so I have my computers. That's all my computer screens are all lit up here because they're trying to download this stuff. And I started looking through a few Mo videos, which I haven't seen in a while. And I'm sitting here just laughing. I'm just crying. I'm laughing because he was such a character. But I watch a video of him hitting balls, talking about a swing, and now I'm like, that makes so much sense to me now. Back then, I had no idea what he was talking about, right? I mean, I was like, it's totally foreign to me, but I love watching it. I think he was so right on. He was so right on. Yeah.
And ultimately, I guess that relationship and meeting Mo, it took you down a different path yourself. You mentioned that you want to teach effectively a one plane, I'll call it technique. Let's call it a technique
Yeah.
to everyone in the world. So, what was your transition into coaching then? From because you've been playing as a player, trying to make a living. What was that transition like?
Yeah, it was that was challenging because I was trying to do both for a little while. I was trying to both play some tournaments and then I would go to events, which is interesting. I would go to events and I would get now. I went through a period of time when I played really well. 2000, 2001, I had some of my best years competitively. But the better I played, the more people wanted to know about what I was doing. And so I couldn't really end up at an event without people asking me about my swing and stuff. So here I am trying to teach some and keep my competitive, game intact. And so, but I'm making more money teaching than I am playing. And so I'm like, I got to make some, and I was 34 years old and I just gotten married. And, and, and I don't know if you know who Rick Carlisle is. And I give Rick is the head coach for the Indiana Pacers
Right.
and the NBA team here. And Rick had caddied for me in a couple of tournaments. And Rick was a very good friend of mine. And I remember I played at Rick caddy for me in an event. I didn't play very well in the event. And he goes, "You ever think about just coaching?" And I'm like, and I said, I take it you think, he goes, "Todd, because you're a really good coach." And he goes, "I know good coaches. I'm a coach." And he goes, and Rick had an NBA career as well. And so I kind of started taking the hint a little bit of maybe take my skills as a communicator and my analytical aspects and the way I structure systems, because that's what I've done with it. I've just built systems around it. Um, that was kind of and then I was married and I just gotten married and, it's trying to settle down and all the travel that it takes to play competitive golf. I just decided I want to probably start really pursuing the coaching side of this. And so that was really I still played a little bit, but I decided to really dig into the coaching and then I became really successful at it.
Brilliant.
So, yeah.
And then what's your approach with people? So clearly you're looking at the one plane approach, right? But
Yeah.
what does it look like if, for example, if I came for a lesson for you, Todd, what would we be talking about? What things would we be focusing on?
Well, I built a system around it because there's a couple things that I don't want to say golf instructing has been taught incorrectly because there is a lot of great instructors out there. But I was looking at the PJ teaching manual, for example, and they have not updated their instruction in the PJ manual since 1991. So And if you think about in today's world, yeah, the way it's written, they've updated the cover. It's nice. They reprint the cover all the time, and so they, so if you think about it, what we know now and what we knew back in 1991 and even before that, because the manual was obviously written for memorization before 1991. Um, there's so much to know about how we learn, how the body works. Uh, so the way I approach it, and so put Moe Norman aside for a minute and say, and look at it from this perspective. What did Moe Norman actually discover? Well, he discovered a way to put the body in certain positions that make it easier to get to impact. It's as simple as that. And so what are those positions? Okay. Well, I would say if I had to sit in front of a stadium and teach 100,000 people in 5 minutes that your body is a design, and I can prove it to you. Your arm can only rotate so far, your hips can only rotate so far, and your body can only move so much. So if I can put your body into the correct positions, I can get you to do that every single time based on your body's design. And so your body has limits of range of motion. And what Moe discovered was if I position myself a certain way and I put the club on the same plane I'm going to impact, I can repeat this thing with at least amount of stress, movement, and difficulty based on the way the body works. That's why both of Moe's feet are on the ground at impact. Why?
Right.
Because when your foot's down, you're limited. You can only rotate so much. Why was he tilted like he was? Because it limits rotation. So all these things biomechanically that Moe did were positions that made getting to impact easier. And so it was all based in science, and it really is a scientific. Moe didn't necessarily know that, but he did know it because he figured it out intuitively. And I think that's why I appreciated him so much, because the way his brain was wired was he didn't read magazines. He didn't watch other players and say, "What are you doing?" As Moe would say, "I did it my way. I did it my way." Right. And that's that possibly autistic and intuitive awareness saying why this is easier. Placing the club behind the ball, there's science to that. Because and here's the thing, it's a very simple science. Your body is more open at impact rotationally than it is at address.
Yeah.
So the club can't be in the same spot, right? At impact and address, it can't be in the same spot. It has to be back because you're more open at impact. So that's what Moe is discovering, and it's remarkable if you think about it from that perspective. And then, of course, I had to quantify everything. I'm a science guy. I started quantifying how much rotation did Moe have, how much pelvis bend, so I have this data sheets. But it was interesting because I built a software that would, obviously I put sensors on your body and I could measure how much your body was moving. And I could not even see you. I could sit behind the screen and watch the data, right? So I could just watch the numbers, and I could have an instructor out there and I could be on a speaker and going, okay, put them at 12 degrees of bend, put them at 25 degrees of rotation. And I could produce the exact same swing of Moe Norman and you just with data. So,
Wow.
yeah, so I mean, it's just a model. I built a model around that, and it works. If you get into the model, it works every single time.
And it sounds like Moe was effectively Iron Byron before Iron Byron was built by the US. That's a USGA thing, I think, isn't it? The
Exactly.
testing
And
setup.
it's on a single plane, right? That machine. And you know why it's on a single plane? Because they tried to build a 2-plane machine. Did you know that?
No?
So True Temper, that's a True Temper machine. Matter of fact, I spent time
Right.
with that machine, and True Temper was testing shafts. So
Yeah.
they were trying to model Byron Nelson's swing with it, but they would have they'd have the axis of the arm of the machine, and they had another axis for the club. They could not get it to align because the club would bend in the axis. So they put the thing on a single axis, one arm, one shaft. And it was basically a single plane machine. So they had to build it into a single plane to even be able to test clubs. I used to test golf balls and clubs on those things all the time. Yeah, they had to build it into a single axis. Exactly what Mo figured out. Exactly.
Wow. That's incredible. And then what impact has it had on, I guess, your golf in terms of, because you said you went through a really dark point, and I know that you don't play for a living now, you're coaching, but what impact has it had on you playing as well then, Todd, through those times?
I didn't play a lot for a while because I was really building the business around teaching. But when I do play, I'll tell you the biggest benefit I have now is I don't have to practice that much
Right.
to be relatively good. Now, of course, look, the game, short game and putting. If I went out and played with you, you'd be like, Todd, you hit it really good, but you're putting terrible, right? Because the game requires you to practice. But I'm not sharp like I used to be, but I'm a pretty good golfer all the time without having to practice much because the swing, it's simple. You, I, my biggest problem with golf is that I just got to go out there and let the club do the work because I'm out there trying to be the tour player I was back when I was playing. And if I just go out there and make good swings, I hit good shots. And so, let the mechanics do their job, and so let that swing I always tell people the swing's already inside of you. You just got to position yourself and let it come out of you by just with good positions and good swing motion. And so now I just enjoy the game. The biggest thing for me and the thousands of people that I've been able to teach is just enjoying playing the game and hitting good golf shots. It's about enjoyment. You'd be surprised at how little is about score with the people I teach. I mean, score becomes a factor when you hit it good. You want to score well, right? But when when you don't hit the ball well and you're not a good ball striker, the score becomes irrelevant. It becomes about number one, enjoying the game, hitting fairways, hitting greens, not looking for golf balls the whole time, and then score becomes somewhat secondary. Because if I said to you, "Hey, I'll tell you what, let's go out and play golf," and I'm going to have you hit it in the trees every single time off the tee, but you're still going to shoot even par. You'd be like, yeah, that's great. I shot even par, but it sucked because I'm in the trees all day long. So that's what you're going to say. But if I said to you, hey, you're going to hit every fairway, you're going to rip it down the fairway really nice down the middle, you're going to hit it on the green, but you're going to three putt every hole, you would walk off the course going, I didn't putt very well, but I hit it good. It's fun, right? So it comes down to enjoyment. It really does. And that's what I'm just helping people have fun playing golf. And if I can get them to, I had two guys at my academy here today or yesterday, and one's in his early 40s, one guy's 80, and they both came up to me and they said, Todd, they said, I would not be playing golf if it wasn't for you and Moe Norman. I would have quit
Wow.
because of frustration and because of maybe back pain or injury, and giving people hope that there's an easier way. So those are my trophies now, right? Those people are my trophies. The people that are actually 80-year-old guy, that his wife's like, you're crazy. You're crazy to keep playing golf. Why do you keep doing this? He goes, because I found an easier way and I love hitting golf shots, right? I love the feeling of the golf ball. And I'm like, that's what I do it for the 80-year-old guy that wants to keep hitting it solid and wants to keep playing golf because it helps him.
Absolutely. And then on Mo, what would you hope that people remember about Mo most?
Well, I mean, the documentary will be a big part of hopefully really telling the story about Mo. He's such a unique character, but I think what I want people to realize is that when there's a lot of people in the world like Mo that we kind of discount. We think, well, they're not normal. They don't act normal. They don't have normal lives. Mo didn't have a bank account. He didn't have a checking account. I mean, he didn't know. I remember one time in his car, I said, Mo, I used to like to dig through his car because all the stuff was in his car. And I opened his glove box up and a bunch of papers blew out. And I'm running around the parking lot with a golf club trying to trap these papers. And I pick one up and it's a check for $15,000 and it's like 60 days old. And he goes, and he shoves it back to the glove box, and because he didn't pay attention to that stuff. But just appreciating just who he was, and I think we got to appreciate guys like Moe Norman who can really have these gifts, and that we can really learn from them. And I just want to realize he was a wonderful guy, and he was so unique. We need to celebrate people like Mo. That's what I hope. I hope Mo brings that to the world a little bit when we could tell a story.
Absolutely. And then what would you hope that people remember about your contribution on this as well, Todd?
Well, I always tell people that I had a friend of mine asked me the other day. He goes, Todd, what's going to happen when you're gone? Like Mo's gone. What if we're gone? I said, look, it's like my legacy will be all the people I've taught the single plane swing, and they're going to carry on the tradition of Mo's single plane swing. So that's my mission: is that the more people I can teach this to, the more people that I can. And I got coaches, a lot of coaches too. I was on a coaches meeting yesterday with 10 of my coaches, it's the coaches that are teaching it, and it's the people they teach that'll be the legacy of this. It won't be just one guy like me. It'll be, hey, the Moe story will be out there, which is great. It'll be documented, but it's going to be how many people are out there in single plane. And by the way, watch the kids. Watch the kids when you hand them a golf club out there. They put out there just like Moe Norman. They stick it in a straight line because that's the easiest way to hit that thing on the ground with the stick. And then we change them into this: lower your hands, stand closer to the ball, and then we complicate it. So let the kids be kids and let them naturally hit a golf ball, and you'll see a bunch of Moe Normans out there hitting it dead straight. So that's the legacy of it.
Brilliant. Well, Todd, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been fascinating to hear from you, and I'm so pleased that we got to hear about your own journey as well. In terms of people following up and wanting to know more about the single plane swing, how can they get in touch with you, and how can they learn with you?
Well, you always go to my website. Look, I tell people to email me directly if they'd like. It's toddg@gravesgolf.com. We have plenty of resources. We have an online single plane academy, which you can go register for free. And we do lots of instruction. We have a lot of live events going on all the time. And then I finished a book just recently called The Intelligent Golf Swing, which they can pick up on Amazon, or they can go to theintelligentgolfswing.com and pick up a copy of the book. I wrote this book with the help of AI to have this discussion about Moe and about all the discoveries that I made about his swing. And we put that into a book, which has been a really fun thing for me because it's brought in a little bit of AI into the Moe Norman world. Moe's on the cover of the book, by the way. So they want to get that. That's a really fun book, and it'll be out in an audio version here pretty soon as well. So you can pick up a copy of my book. You can email me directly at toddg@gravesgolf.com, or you can go to my websites, gravesgolf.com, and find out all the information about it.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a real privilege to hear from you, Todd, and all the best for the future.
Thank you, Ross. It's great to be on your show. Appreciate that.
I'd like to thank Todd for his time and for sharing not only his own journey through the game, but also such personal insight into life and legacy of Moe Norman. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and switch on automatic downloads wherever you're listening. And if you know someone who loves the game, please share it with them. You can find the show on Instagram at Link by Golf Podcast for future episodes, clips and insights. And if you've got a moment, please leave a review. It really does help us reach more golfers just like you. I'm Ross McGuire. Thanks for listening.
Loman Golf Tours have helped thousands of guests build bespoke golf trips to create a magical experience. Travel in style with our executive chauffeur travel, whether it's golf on a major championship venue or one of our hidden gems, 5-star accommodation or a boutique bed and breakfast, or is it whiskey tasting on a private boat? Loman Golf Tours are here to help build the tour of a lifetime. Whether you're celebrating a special occasion or ticking it off your bucket list, embark on a trip that you'll remember forever. Visit www.lomangolftours.com.